Hello, everyone. What's up? Welcome to Doop on the Volley. This is Philly Sports Network's Union podcast. And we got our full crew back together here. And it's an exciting time as we get to talk about a Union victory as the Union went on the road to Portland severely shorthanded and still came out with a 3-1 win on the day. We're going to get into it on that. We have some major, transfer news, but also not really transfer news yet because Cavan Sullivan will be playing for the Philadelphia Union at some point, according to reports from The Athletic and other sources as well. And then we're going to get into that and also talk about how the Union have an upcoming match this Saturday at home in the afternoon against Minnesota United. So let's bring it around here and talk to our panel. So we got Paul. How you doing today, Paul?
I'm doing great. How are you guys?
Hey, we're here. We get to talk soccer. It's almost the end of the week. We're getting there, man. Yeah.
That one.
Yeah, man. We also have Eric as well. Welcome back.
Thank you. Good to be back.
Yeah. And Jimmy over there. How's it going, Jimmy?
Not too bad. I feel like most weekends or most weeks that we meet, most of us are pretty tired by this point, and we're ready for the weekend. But it is almost there, and it feels good to know that we've got a afternoon game at Subaru Park this weekend, and it looks like the weather is going to be at least bearable. I think that's the bare minimum we could ask for at this point. It's just for there not to be a monsoon or a lightning storm or something crazy. So yeah, I'm excited to just get out to the lots early. I'm planning to be there early, spend most of my Saturday morning there and just to see everyone. So if anyone's there and sees me, say what's up, and hope to have a few hangs with people before the game.
Dude, it's so nice to have an afternoon game, like just to actually get up early and then you can get down to the lots, like you just said, Jimmy. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
We're right off the bat. We got a question here. We got a question. How are the Union supposed to keep up with big name city signing players like Giroux recently? You guys, anyone want to take that question right now, or how are we feeling?
That's a huge move. Once again, MLS has had this kind of this thing about them for a long time now of being the retirement league, and I think that's like a very justified kind of tagline for them to carry. But at the same time, the moves that LAFC have made in that regard have kind of worked out, right? Like Gareth Bale is the literal reason Union don't have an MLS Cup right now. Chiellini was a really good addition to their squad, even though he couldn't be like a full 90-minute starter every game. So they have a good record of going out and getting players that are going to impact the squad right away. And I don't. That's not the type of signing I think Union are going to make is something like that. But once again, it is putting a lot of pressure on the Union to do something, especially if Julian Carranza is leaving this summer. That is something that is still wildly up in the air. We have no idea how that's going to happen or how that's going to pan out. So I think at the very least it puts more pressure on this front office and on this team to figure out something to keep up with the rest of the pack in the league.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. It's gonna. The MLS keeps getting these types of players, and they go to the places like LA, I was about to say New York, but not really New York, but sort of, and Miami, things like that. So,
right.
All right, guys. Well, let's get right into it. So the Union went out to Portland last weekend, and we did a pregame show, and I know a lot of us were kind of on the fence about being hyped up for it. We're going to see a lot of reserve players and younger players get into the 11. But then others of us, I'm going to raise my hand here, we're actually feeling pessimistic, which is very against my ethos at least. And I thought that they were going to get smacked 3-1, and the team turns it around on me and they win 3-1 in Portland. So let's just get our first thoughts on the Portland match just in and of itself. And I'll throw this one to Eric first. What are your initial thoughts and takeaways?
My initial thoughts is that I've got to be busy and not be able to watch games more often, clearly, because the first game I missed this season, they go out and crush it. I think it's a good, at least it gives some hope for our depth. There's been worries this season about our depth. I think rightly so.
Yeah.
And I think it doesn't completely ease the worries, but at least it shows that in the right situation, these guys can step up and perform. And hopefully it gives them something to build on as well. It's some positive momentum. They're still undefeated in the league, which feels weird, but now it feels a little less weird than when we were drawing every game. Now it's like we've kind of got that platform to build on and to really challenge the guys coming back from international duty to now keep that going, because if they come back and fall flat on their face, well, maybe some people whose positions weren't under threat before may find themselves looking over their shoulders a little bit. So I think it's going to be a tough test to do that, but I think like I said, it provides a good platform for moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. Jimmy, what are your thoughts on it?
Well, obviously going into the game, we knew that there was a lot of key pieces to the lineup missing. So we really, I can't remember if all of us were there, but whoever was on the show, we had talked about kind of what we had thought the lineup might look like. And I think we kind of got the right players that were playing for the most part. But I think the formation specifically surprised us a little bit. And I think what we ended up calling that was a 4-4-2 flat, I believe. And kind of, I think the approach was just kind of be a little bit more behind the ball, force Portland to break you down. And to be fair, I think Portland had chances to grab goals early. And all credit to Oliver Semlin. I think he has had a tremendous start to his career in Philadelphia. And I'll put my hand up right now. I have criticized this front office a lot. And I need to say that they have gotten this one right. I think we were excited about this transaction in the offseason. We had high hopes, but I don't know that any of us expected him to shine this brightly this early on. So that's a really positive point for me in that game specifically. But then the other takeaway for me, the biggest takeaway, is Julian Carranza, man. He is our goal scorer. He took that. He when you need someone to take the game and just and say we're going to win this game no matter who's in the lineup. There is one person on our team that does that from open play, and it's Julian Carranza. And without Daniel Gazdag, it had to be him, and he showed up. That first goal, that header, he probably should not have scored that. I think he didn't necessarily out jump anyone. Just the other defenders didn't really have the onus to go and get the ball before him, and it was kind of an awkward angle that he headed it in. But it was perfectly placed, and we were off and running from there. I really liked the performance. I think we had talked similarly. Maybe there was a little bit of that kind of backs against the wall mentality, like against NYCFC in the Eastern Conference Finals a couple years ago, not having so many players. And we kind of thought maybe they would come out with a little bit of energy, and they really did. They settled the storm early and got it done. I think it was a big performance early on in the season.
Yeah, I mean, especially when you look at it, going into that game in Portland was one of the hottest teams in MLS. And when Union usually go into those games, especially on the road, they look to sit and just defend and get through, the different periods of time. Usually that first 15 minutes is something that Jim Curtin always talks about. And they did that. And then they went and scored before the next 15 minutes, before the 30th minute mark with that Carranza goal. So, Paul, I know before the game, you were saying that there would be, some of these young players that would kind of take the reins. Did you see one player or any of the players that kind of stood out to you that aren't usually in the starting 11 from this match?
Actually, I had two players. I'm gonna start off by talking about Marcus Anderson, the new signing from the summer. I thought the role that he played in the other night, I think it fit him perfectly. Obviously, we signed him as a striker, but I really think he does fit that left midfielder or wide midfielder winger type of role. And I really liked what I saw from him. I've been a big fan of him since the signing. If you guys have heard, I probably praised him a couple times on this podcast. But that performance that he had on Saturday night, it just keeps reasoning, and I think he has a big future with this team. And the other player, I'm going to go with another guy who's on the other side of the wing, Jeremy Raffanello. He had a big performance as well. When he had his first start in Kansas City, obviously he didn't fully adapt, and then he got taken off at halftime. But in this game, he was given a majority of the match to do it. I'm pretty sure he didn't get taken. It's been a long week, so my apologies if I forgot he got taken off.
No, he didn't. He didn't.
Yeah, so he played the full match, and I thought he looked really good as well. So obviously the youth is huge in this club, and I guess those two really stood out to me the most. And Semla, I'm just gonna keep going. But
that's fine.
I wanted to point out a stat really quick that my friend Blake from MLS Gone Wild, he's a Columbus Crew fan. If you guys don't follow him, he posts a lot of really great stuff that's not just Crew related. A lot of just general MLS stats and MLS fantasy stuff that he does with Brian from Top Bin Media down in Charlotte. But he posted a stat. And this is in reference to Union being outpossessed. I believe it was like 72 to 28% or something like that. Mm-hmm. He posted a stat that says, dating back to the 2019 season, Union have had 32% possession or less in 6 games. They are 4 wins and 2 draws with differential in those games. I just thought that was really, really interesting. That goes along with a quote that Jim Curtin said the other day. I don't want to misquote it, so let me see if I can pull it up quick. But it was basically something along the lines of possession without penetration is useless. Something along the line of that. Possession without real penetration is useless. It was literally that. And so. Yeah, I don't know. I just thought that was really interesting that, we know that Union don't really prioritize high possession, but it's interesting to see that when they really give up possession, they actually kind of succeed. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, especially just, talking about that sort of thing. When you're in a 4-4-2 flat, you have those 2 groups of 4 that can just sit. And they can sit in, they can defend as a unit of 8. And then you have your people who you want to get the ball to when it's time to trigger a counterattack. Now, I'm kind of spacing in this game if I really saw a lot of that as to who they were playing to. It might have been more of like Mikael Ua. They usually like to play the ball over the top to him and then let Carranza and everyone else run onto it. But that sort of way of playing and that formation, it really does suit the Union and how they like to not have possession. And I think it's something we could really see moving forward, and not to jump too far ahead, but with a certain teenage player who may or may not get first team minutes this year, his best position seems to be more of as a winger. Mm-hmm. So if you play a 4-4-2, you have wide midfielders, which aren't really wingers, but you could kind of play someone like that maybe if they wanted to. But before we move on, do we have any kind of final takeaways from this match? I mean, it's the first win of the season. So, Eric, I'll throw it over to you. Do you have anything else that you kind of stood out to you from this game? I know you say we weren't able to watch it live, but as you kind of went back and looked at everything, do you have any last takeaway?
I think we kind of touched on this a little bit, but it really highlights the importance of Carranza to this team. As shorthanded as we were, having him there clearly made all the difference.
Yeah.
So it highlights his importance and the importance of, if he does leave this summer, getting a quality replacement. Someone who can slot in there and contribute right away, which is something the team hasn't necessarily been good at in the past. It's often taken new signings half a season or so to kind of bed in and start really making an impact. You've seen that with players like Gazdag, for example. So if they let him go mid-season, they're going to need to buck that trend and bring in someone who hits the ground running.
Yeah, it's very true. Paul, any final thoughts on this Portland match?
I think that I might be going a little crazy with this take here, but I think that could be a big turning performance for this season. You go into Portland down 8 players, and you end up coming back to Philadelphia with, I think it was a good 3-1 win. Right now, they're 9th place in the East, and they still have a game in hand on a bunch of teams.
Yeah.
I think that it's going to go down as one of the most important wins of the season, depending on how the rest of the season goes.
Yeah, I mean, it can definitely be a building block, and they're going to need it to be, especially with the team that they're facing this week in Minnesota. But before we get there, Jimmy, any final thoughts of the win against Portland?
Yeah, I agree with what you all said. I think similarly, kind of piggybacking off what Paul just said. I think all the guys that were away on international duty probably left and were probably, kind of like us. Like, hey, if we get a draw out of this game, that's a good result. I'm sure some of the boys were watching the game or checking their phone and really excited with that result and are almost itching to get back to be with the guys and continue this and see if they can build on that. I wanted to just kind of point out now, 3 draws in the first 3 games and then a win in the 4th brings us to 6 points on the season total. Man, it's not half bad, honestly. I know you got to be a little bit upset about that game at home against Chicago, but all in all, with CCC being at play, I think 6 points so far it could be a lot worse, right? So I don't know. I think you got to be a little bit happy with 2 draws on the road and a big win on the road without a couple big players. Obviously, there was some points on the board that were left off. I think you probably could have won in a couple of those games, but like I said, I think it is a pretty decent start, and I think this fan base has a little bit of a tendency to see a little bit of the doomsday when things go wrong. So it's just nice to see maybe things aren't as bad as we thought they were like 2 weeks ago.
That is very true, because it seemed like a lot of people were ready to get those pitchforks out and be ready to turn on the club. And honestly, like, I don't blame the fans for wanting that because it seemed like it was going to be more of the same. And the saving grace right now with this team is that they have a heart of a fighter and they won't go down. So we'll see how that continues. But before we kind of move on and preview the match for this weekend, there was some major breaking news just yesterday. We had sort of heard before that 14-year-old wonderkind Cavan Sullivan was going to go to Manchester City. And the rumors and reports as of last week was when he turned 16, he was going to go on loan to a City Football Group club in the 2nd division of Belgium, I think it was. And that basically he would never play first team minutes for the Philadelphia Union. Well, fast forward a week, and there's a new report coming from The Athletic and Tom Bogert saying that he will actually sign the richest homegrown deal in MLS history sometime soon. He's still going to sign for Man City when he turns 18, but before that, he's going to stay in Philadelphia and play with the Philadelphia Union. And this is just crazy, crazy, crazy news. People are talking about this product as being one of the best players in the world for his age group. And I know he's 14, and it seems a little weird to talk about 14-year-old players like that. But this player is a special player. I know some people have been able to now see him at Union 2 matches, or at least at the match last weekend where he made his professional debut. He came on the field and got the game-winning assist against dudes that were legitimately bodying him and knocking him to the ground most times. So that just shows what a special player he is. Essentially, the terms of the deal say that he will stay here in Philadelphia unless he surpasses MLS's standard of play, which is, I don't even know how you can quantify that. That's just kind of the gist of the deal. So I want to throw it over to Jimmy. What were your thoughts when you saw this deal come through?
I was shocked, honestly. I have to be honest. Yeah. If we were kind of in the mindset, most people were in the mindset that seeing Cavan play for the first team was probably, if anything, it was probably going to be one of those things where he gets like a game or two just to like stop in. But now it seems like him actually playing with his brother on the first team is a bigger possibility than ever before. That's obviously pending Quinn's trajectory and where he ends up, and if he stays in Philadelphia. But I think just the thought of that is incredible alone. And the last two weekends that Union 2 have played, Union have been on the road the night before, and the team does come back the same night. They fly back after games. But Quinn has been to both afternoon games the day after, having really good road performances. And the first game, his brother wasn't even in the lineup. So it shows how supportive his family is. Obviously, to have two kids that are going to end up being, I don't want to say superstars because I don't want to jump ahead of ourselves, but they're going to end up being at least two names that are known. And I think that's really great. As far as the implications go for Union, I think it's huge, right? I was talking with someone the other day. My hope is 10 years from now, as much as it would kill me to watch someone from Union play for Man City, watching someone go through the Union Academy and play for Man City and ball out would be the ultimate dream. And that is what Union have set their foundation as, is growing kids from their academy and selling them on to the biggest teams in Europe. And what bigger way to do that than have what people are saying is the best youth player in the world be that for your team. So again, like Tim said, he is a 14-year-old kid. He's got to continue to be a kid and just play soccer right now. And luckily with this deal, it looks like he's going to be able to do that at home with his family, with the people he already knows and is kind of adjusted with. And I think that to me is the biggest thing, is just keeping him in the environment that he's already done so well in, and just keep him building up. And we've seen every time he plays above his age group, he's one of, if not the best players on the field. So I think he's going to continue to do that. I think we'll see him on the first team. I don't know if this year, but sooner than later. And I'm really, really, really excited for that. So I'm really excited for the family, and I'm just hopeful for the kid.
Yeah. I mean, the excitement level when I saw the news, like I could not believe it. Like, honestly, I was just in shock. And I know, Eric, I think you were in that same boat. Like you jumped right on it and started writing up a story on the signing and kind of what it means for the Philadelphia Union as well as for the player. So I just want to give you a moment to just kind of like talk about what you see this player could be for the club and what it means for the club itself.
Yeah, I mean, it's like we've been saying, it's a huge, and it feels bigger, I think, because we thought it wasn't going to happen. So that just amplifies the feeling, the good feelings around it. And I think it goes to show how much he and his family care about Philly and about the Union, that he wanted to stay here and continue his development here before then moving on to Man City. As much as I hate Man City. I think the other thing it does is it continues this pattern of showing that players, that the team will help facilitate these young players getting to the right environment for them to develop, whether that's staying here to develop before moving on to a big club, or going to somewhere like Austria or Germany or wherever to continue their development once they reach that point. So particularly with the visibility in this transfer, more so maybe even than the Aaronsons, I think it just sends out a signal of like, hey, if you come to Philly and play with the Union, we will develop you, but we're not gonna hold on to you. We're not gonna prevent you from achieving your dream if you want to go play in Europe and if your development takes you that way. So I think this is the kind of thing that ends up compounding over time, and it feels like it feels almost like not quite the next step in the evolution of the academy, but almost like we skipped a step or two. Particularly given it's not just like one big team kind of signed him out of nowhere. There were multiple big teams going after him, and regardless of the fact that he should have gone to Dortmund, and I say that as a Bayern fan, but I thought Dortmund's just their track record developing youth is insane. It just goes to show that there are lots of eyes on this academy now. And if they can continue to produce players of quality, not even necessarily best wonder kid at their age level quality, but good enough to play and be a regular contributor on a European team, the attention's only going to grow, and that's just going to feed into that compounding.
Yeah. And I think that's something that we haven't seen yet. And you're right. It's kind of like we skipped a step. But you look at clubs that have sold players like that, like FC Dallas with Chris Richards. Like, he never played for FC Dallas. He just went to, where did he go? I'm spacing. Oh my gosh.
He went to Bayern.
Did he go to Bayern? Oh,
yeah.
I missed that. Well, there you go. And then who else? For NYCFC, Gio Reyna never played for them, but he was part of their academy. He went to Dortmund, right? Am I right on that one? Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. I got 1 for 2. But the Union have kind of skipped that step, and now they're getting to the point where they're developing these types of players, and they're able to sign them and get them to play for the first team. And I forget who said it, and I'm kicking myself because I'm so tired and I can't remember. But someone kind of compared this move, and it's a little bit different because of the age and things like that, but to Alphonso Davies for Vancouver, because he signed, I believe, when he was 15 and then got to play for Vancouver for a few years and then go overseas. So again, to Bayern, right? I got that one.
Yeah.
So it's almost like the Union are skipping that step. But Paul, I'll kind of throw that to you. Do you expect now, with the academy being, as highly watched as it is, that clubs will come in and start to kind of swoop up players that way, create that pathway?
I do. I think they'll wait to see if this is successful at first. This whole obviously you don't want to come in and swoop and then have it not work out, which will be detrimental to both clubs, because then they see the path doesn't work out. But I do think in the future, if clubs do sign right from the academy and it does end up working out, you're going to see that happen a lot. And honestly, you're already really seeing it because once again, came out the same day as yesterday, Man City announced that they're closing a deal to sign a young left back from NYCFC, from the name of he goes by Christian McFarlane. So I think you're going to see it more, and I also think it shows that the growth this league is taking. If you're having these top teams and top academies coming in and scouting your homegrown talent and bringing them over, it's just huge for the league, huge for the Union, everything that's happening. I'm just really excited about it all.
Yeah. Well, it'll be some time, we think, before we will see Cavan Sullivan play for the first team. I do believe, though, that Tom Bogert said either in his article or in the little YouTube video that he put out that there could be a way for him to play this year with the club. Philly would have to, would have to sort of do something similar to what the Red Bulls just did this past weekend, where they'd have to play him in an afternoon game because of labor laws and things like that. I didn't look too closely into that, so I don't know all the details, but maybe we'll get to see Cavan Sullivan play for the first team with his brother. I think that would be really cool, and I can't wait for that first Sullivan to Sullivan assist there. So
speaking of assists, Union 2 just tied it up.
Hey. Yeah, we haven't really mentioned that, but Union 2 are playing currently right now against Chicago Fire 2, looking to stay at the top of the Eastern Conference. So let's hope that they can pull through here. They just tied the game, as Eric just said.
And as you said, Tim, I believe, because I was checking to see if Cavan was with the team, but I believe because he's so young, he's not able to play on weekends.
And the other thing is he's, I think I saw this somewhere. I'm trying to remember who said it. That he's getting ready to play in the Generation Adidas Cup this weekend.
Oh, yes.
So if you want to see him before he joins the first team.
Yeah, watch those streams. I think most of them are either on YouTube or Apple TV now. I can't remember where they put them now.
I believe it's all on Apple this year.
All on Apple this year.
And if you haven't watched it, you should. It is a great tournament. You are, like, as we were talking about here, Cavan's not the only one that's being recognized. Maybe not by the top teams, but there are a lot of other really exciting players in the academy coming up through the ranks. And yeah, watching that tournament, I think you'll have a lot of entertainment and enjoyment out of it. It's a lot of fun.
And we're going head to head against some of the biggest teams in the world. I mean, just a couple of years ago, we beat both Arsenal and Real Madrid's teams on the way to the final. So, yeah, it's a good opportunity not just to see Union youngsters, but also some of the top young players just in the world in general.
Yeah, and it's really cool to see how MLS teams and the Union stack up against those teams, those big teams from Europe, and it all comes together in that tournament. So, hey, if you got time and you can watch the streams, I know the club will put out all the streams when they're on. So whenever those are actually going to go on, we'll be able to see that there. But let's turn our attention back to the first team and their game this weekend. We have the Philadelphia Union taking on Minnesota United at 2 p.m. at Subaru Park. It's going to be a good one, guys. We have right now the best team in the Western Conference coming into Subaru Park. It's Minnesota United, and some people might not think that, but they have 3 wins and a draw from their first 4 games, and they've scored goals. They've scored 8 goals in those 4 games. So first, just thoughts, initial thoughts on Minnesota. Let's say, Paul, I'll throw this to you first. Have you been able to kind of catch some of what they've been putting together here in the early season?
So I watched a little bit of their last match against LAFC. It was Eric Ramsey's first match as manager of Minnesota, and since he was a former Man United assistant, I was just curious to see how he would settle in and just everything goes. And they ended up knocking down LAFC 2-0.
Yeah.
I think it's really it's surprising, I think, how good they've looked, and the fact that even with the whole change coming in a manager, they're still continuing on that steady flow of just beating top teams. They beat LAFC 2-0. They beat Orlando 3-2. They drew against Columbus. They're just looking like an overall really good team this year. It's going to be a tough test on Saturday.
Yeah. Jimmy, I know we were talking before the show started about their late goals. Do you think that's something that could kind of rear its head in this coming match this weekend?
Yeah, I think especially if you look right now, offensively, like you said, they're scoring goals. They are actually kind of over achieving their expected goals by about 2 goals so far this season. But when you look at their expected goals allowed, it's around 8.2, and they've let up by 4. So it looks like they have actually been a little bit lucky not to concede. And I think maybe that's why they've been able to kind of grind out some of these performances. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter why. It's the what the result that you get that matters. And I think that is something that Union should kind of pay attention to, is that this team has resiliency similar to them. And one goal maybe isn't safe. Maybe two goals isn't even safe. So get that lead, keep putting pressure on, and don't take the foot off the pedal.
Yeah, for those who don't know, the first 3 games for Minnesota this year, they've scored a winner or an equalizer after the 90th minute. The only game they haven't done that is their most recent game against LAFC, where they beat them 2-0, and it looked like a very comprehensive win. So, Eric, do you have any thoughts on Minnesota coming to town here?
I think it's going to be a good test for our defense. They're going to have to play mistake-free if we want to come away with the result. And like Jimmy was saying, we need to keep the pressure on. We can't take our foot off the gas as we're going, even if we have a multi-goal lead. It's kind of similar to what we've been saying about Union this year in terms of that mentality and that never say die attitude to keep fighting until the end. So it's going to be interesting to see, an unstoppable force meets an immovable object. Who's going to win? I think getting the first goal is going to be important, but given the mentalities of the two teams, I don't think it's going to be the end all be all. But obviously we always want to win at home, and we want to play well. So again, kind of going back to what I was saying, tailing off last week's game, building on the successes of last week and really coming out firing and having these guys who were absent for international G coming in and saying, hey, we're gonna come out with the passion that the team showed last week and really get it done at home in front of our fans is going to be vital. And whether or not they do that, I think it's going to go a long way in determining whether, like Paul was saying, whether last week's game is a true turning point of the season or whether it was just the next bit of the kind of up and down roller coaster that we've seen a little so far.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the main key for this game, and it really has to do with personnel on the field, in my opinion. Paul, I'll throw this to you. We know we had 8 players out on international duty, and now they're back with the team, and maybe only for a few days here, and maybe only a day or so of training. But who do you think will kind of keep their job from last week, and who do you think is going to come back and kind of take it back right away? You don't have to go through all the players, but what's one person you think might stay and one person that's coming back that you think will get their spot back right away?
Oh, this is tough.
Right.
So for the person that's going to come back and get the spot right away, I'm going to do a little bit of an obvious choice. I'm going to pick Brujo. Obviously, when Brujo's there, he's going to play. If he's healthy, he's going to play. He's at the heart of the defense in midfield. I know they played well against Portland, but I feel like he adds a little aggression that you may have argued that they may have missed a little bit on Saturday night. So I think Brujo's going to slide right in. And then when you come to a player that's going to get replaced, now this is where it gets it's tough. So I might say a little bit of a controversial take right here. Personally, what I would do is I would keep Raffanello in for Gazdag.
Ooh.
Okay. I feel Raffanello's he's a little more creative, if that's the word to use. And I think obviously Gazdag does create assists, but I feel like Raffanello might be a little more. And especially with Ura and Carranza up top, I feel like you need a player who will be creative and get them through balls and stuff. It'll just help the team flow more.
That's really interesting. I really like those 2 players in general. One with El Brujo coming back. I mean, the team didn't have a defensive midfielder last week, so yes, that does make a lot of sense to have an actual true defensive midfielder. I love it, and it is true. I would think Jim Curtin would put that in pen on his lineup right now, and I really like Raffanello in there. It's interesting you say how he kind of creates. He is more of a technical player on the ball, it seems, at least right now, that he can create more for himself and for others than Gazdag. And what we've kind of seen in the past is when Gazdag is on, he's very close to the strikers, playing 1-2s. But in recent memory, even going back to last year, he hasn't really been able to do that. So that's I really like that shout, and we'll see what Jim Curtin kind of does with that. Eric, I'll throw this over to you. We noticed last week that the back line was Wagner, Elliott, Glesnes, and Bizo, which used to be like, oh, those are like the best 4 defenders in the team. But we've seen the emergence of Damian Lowe and Nathan Harriel kind of come in here, and those guys were out on international duty. Do you think either of those guys coming back are going to take a spot?
I think Harriel will. He came off the bench in the last game for the U.S. Olympic team, so he didn't have quite as many minutes earlier this week.
Yeah.
Damian Lowe, I think it's going to depend on his fitness levels. He played a lot of minutes during the international break. He played all the way through extra time. I don't think he got subbed off against the U.S.
Well, can I interrupt you for 1 second too?
Yeah.
I want to give a congrats to Damian. Last night, let me get the number correct. It was either 62 or 64. I'm going to check on that number, but while I bring it up, the reason the number is important is because Damian Lowe tied the amount of caps that he had for Jamaica as his father. And that's a huge accomplishment for anyone to get that many games for their country. For someone to follow, yes, it was 62. For someone to follow in their father's footsteps shows that they had a dream at a very young age. And anybody that follows a dream and has their family's support behind them, I think is an incredible thing. And we see that with the Sullivans now, and we see that with Damian Lowe, and that kind of atmosphere is really important to Union's ethos. So sorry to cut you off, Eric. I've been trying to fit that in somewhere while you mentioned Damian. I just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, it's a huge achievement for him. It's awesome. And it would be shocking if he didn't go on to add more caps to that tally. He's clearly an important piece. Important enough that we saw him playing in midfield against the U.S., which was very interesting. He may be even more tired than usual. I don't know. Playing 120 minutes in midfield is pretty brutal. And then I think he played the full 90 in the third place match against Panama as well. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him start on the bench just because of all that game time. I think if he had fewer minutes in his legs, then maybe we would have seen him start, because I think he has been arguably the best center back for us so far this season. But that being said, the defense held fairly strong against a good Portland team away without a defensive midfielder on Saturday. So I think going by that, to a certain extent, the starters from that game kind of earned a chance to give an encore performance.
Yeah, no, 100%. The Damian Lowe stuff, especially about him playing midfield, is funny to me because we were mentioning just before of like, oh, we need it seems like this team needs an emergency defensive midfielder, and at this point, I would put Damian Lowe almost like second on the depth chart, which is crazy to think about. But I think that's what I would do if something crazy happens, like if knock on wood, Brujo got an injury or something along those lines. Yeah, it's just it's crazy to think about. He played almost 2 games.
Tidbit I wanted to throw out there before it leaves my brain. It's something that Paul kind of said. It was his idea of Raffanello keeping his spot and not having Gazdag come back in the lineup. I wanted to bring up something very interesting that Hungary's national coach Marco Rossi said after the international break that just passed. Gazdag only played 45 minutes across, I believe they played 2 games in this window. He played 45 minutes against Turkey as a sub. And after that match, I believe it was after that match, Rossi said, where is it? Sorry, guys. I do not like to talk about individuals, but I have to say that I expect more from Daniel Gazdag. He got his chance, but he didn't perform well tonight either.
Okay.
Ooh.
Pretty straightforward. And I wonder how Gazdag responds to that, because a couple years ago, he leads Union in goals and assists and is in the Golden Boot race. He goes to Hungary and scores that goal against England and is probably feeling really, really good about himself. And here we are, like, a year and a half, max 2 years later, and the manager of his national team is directly asking for him to perform better, which I think is a huge difference from what Union fans are wanting from him right now. So I thought that was really interesting. I wanted to throw that out there as well.
That's a crazy quote, and it is what Union fans are saying right now. Like, he should be performing better. Like, he's been given the chances. He's been the penned-in starter at the number 10 position, and the club hasn't gone out to get anyone to really compete with him. They've just brought up homegrowns. And now we've seen Raffanello kind of have a good game, albeit in a different position, either playing as that winger or sort of tucked in as a central midfielder, not necessarily a 10. But he was a standout player, I thought, in Portland. So it will be interesting to see what Curtin wants to do with that and how he wants to manage Gazdag coming back from international duty. Even though he only played 45 minutes, it's still all the travel and international travel, everything like that. But with that, I think it's time for us to sort of piece together a starting 11. So I'll just kind of throw this out. We'll go position by position. And not that we really have a goalkeeper controversy, but I mean, Ali Semla made team of the week for MLS and made amazing saves last week for the Union. And Andre Blake had to play 120 minutes and then a 90 minutes for Jamaica. Do you think there's any chance that we don't see Blake in goal this week, guys?
I don't. I think such his life as a backup, unfortunately. And that sucks because he's performed so well. And I feel like, Curtin is one of those guys. He's very open about it. How you perform is indicative of how many minutes you get in this lineup. And unfortunately, as a backup, you're probably the one person who, no matter how well you perform, if the goalkeeper in front of you is available, you're not getting that spot. So as long as Andre Blake says he's good to play, which he's a competitor, he probably will say he's good, I would expect Andre Blake to be between the posts on Saturday afternoon.
I do too, for the record. I just love throwing the controversy bit out there. Yeah. Paul, I'll throw this to you. Let's look at outside backs. I think Kai Wagner is probably the penned-in starter at left back, obviously. And then we got to look at right back here. Do you think Bizo or Nate Harriel?
I'm going to go with Harriel personally. He's been the guy when he's been ready, when he's available to play for the Union when he's here. And I don't think really anything's going to change when it comes to that.
And scored a big goal for the national team.
He did.
I can't remember who they were playing with, but another header for Nate Harriel. I mean, get that guy some service in the box. He seems like he's got a knack for finding the ball. So great to see.
Yeah, it's very true. All right, Eric, I'm coming to you with the center back question. I know we kind of talked about it already, but do you think it's going to be Elliott and Glesnes, or does Damian Lowe come in and take one of those spots away?
I think it's going to be Elliott and Glesnes. I think if Damian Lowe hadn't played so much, then he would come in. But yeah, I think we're going to stick with Elliott and Glesnes.
I mean, that's pretty solid. I mean, we got Blake, Wagner, Elliott, Glesnes, Harriel. I really like that as the defensive core of the team. Obviously, we kind of talked about it and joked about it, but El Brujo is back, so he will be starting at the 6 unless something happened and he has some kind of injury or they really want to kind of limit some of his minutes. I think he only played one full game out of the 2. I remember seeing that. I could be wrong, but are we all in agreement that it's going to be Jose Martinez at the 6? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And he played 78 minutes, I believe, 78 or 79 in the first match against Italy, and I don't think he played in the second one. So almost a full 90, not quite.
Okay. Well, there we go. I mean, I think that means he should hopefully be good to start this weekend's match. All right, Jimmy, I'm going to come to you for the question that's been on a lot of people's minds and even Jim Curtin's mind throughout this year, because I don't know if he's put the same two players out in the shuttler positions if they go back to the diamond.
Right.
Who do you think is going to play on the right and left side of the diamond in this game?
I think you'll see Jack McGlynn come back into the lineup. I think similarly, he only played around 90 minutes between the two games.
Yeah.
So he should be somewhat fresh. That being said, he is one of the two players that started every single game for Union this season. So he has gotten less rest than most of the other guys on the roster.
Yeah.
But I think you'll probably see him slot back in. And I think you'll probably see, he's undroppable right now. Quinn Sullivan, I think, is going to be on the right-hand side. I don't think, I don't want to jump ahead to the other positions, but I think just looking at probably who's going to be in the other positions, you got to have Quinn on the field, and that leaves him probably on the right side.
All right. I like that. I think that gives a good balance. It does leave the Union a little shorthanded on the defensive side, but we've seen that Quinn and Jack are both willing and able to hustle back. It's just in those transition moments where they can kind of get beat with speed and other things like that. Okay, so we got to the number 10, guys. And for this one, I'm going to come round robin, and I'm just going to ask you Raffanello or Gazdag. So
Okay.
I'm going to start with Paul. Raffanello, Gazdag.
I know I said Raffanello should start, but I'm going to go Gazdag. I think he's going to get the start when he's there.
I mean, fair enough. Eric?
Yeah, I think Gazdag. I think it would be a very Jim Curtin thing to do to start him, and given his national team coach's challenge, give him the opportunity to kind of really go out there and show his stuff and try to prove him wrong.
Yeah. Jimmy, you on the same wavelength there?
Yeah, I agree. I think right now, especially after hearing what his national team coach says, I think if Gazdag's best interest is something you're trying to mend to, I don't think dropping him is probably going to make that feel any better for him. So he comes back in, but I do think that the performance from Raffanello against Portland does give. Eric, are you reacting because you two just scored?
Almost scored.
Oh,
A header just went past the post.
Oh boy. I think that Jeremy Raffanello's performance against Portland does give Curtin more confidence to have Raffanello come in later in games more or earlier and with less of a okay, we're gonna throw you in the end of the game because you're homegrown and you deserve it, and more deserving minutes. So yeah, I think it will be Gazdag, but I wouldn't be surprised to see Raffanello come on late in the game, especially if it's maybe a little bit wrapped up.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. I think that Curtin is going to give that opportunity to Gazdag, especially with what his national team coach said. So now Curtin is basically going to be like, listen, I'm not even going to tell you anything. You just need to keep reading this. Read this, keep reading this, and go out there and show us what you can do.
Right. Because at the end of the day, the only way he obviously him performing for his national team coach is going to, do well for him as well, but he won't get there unless he's performing well with Union. So he's got to put in those performances to get back in that team and get back in first position in his or first place in his position, I should say.
Yeah. And then that just leaves us with the strikers and the strike pair up top. Does anyone think it's not going to be Ua and Carranza? No.
I can't see it. I do like the way that that Marcus Anderson played, especially not playing in the striker position the other day. I think it shows a lot of flexibility, and not only that, but a willingness to just do whatever the coach asks of him. I think that was huge. I think that is definitely going to earn him some more minutes down the line. And I don't know. I'm just excited about him for some reason. He hasn't done anything super, super flashy or highlight reel worthy, but he's just putting in effort, and I like to see. And I think that's kind of what us Philly people like, is just that kind of hardworking mentality, and he's got that, and I like that so far.
Yeah, I think there's a chance maybe we could see him start alongside Carranza. I agree that I think it'll be Ua, but I think there's a chance.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be shocked. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, of the players that like could retain a spot from last weekend, I wouldn't be surprised if it is Anderson.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean either way, that's a very strong starting 11 with Andre Blake, Kai Wagner, Jack Elliott, Jakob Glesnes, Nate Harriel, El Brujo Martinez, Quinn Sullivan, Jack McGlynn, Daniel Gazdag, and then Ua or Anderson and Carranza. I think that team could just do enough to get a victory again over many are saying are the best team in MLS right now, Minnesota. Guys, we've kind of reached that point of the episode where we kind of give our on the volley takes or our predictions for this upcoming weekend. What do we want to do? Do we want to do score predictions? Does anyone have a crazy take that they want to kind of throw out there? For me, I have one, and I'll kind of start with this. This is my on the volley take, and it's that I'm going to just keep predicting Union losses because when I do that, then they win. And usually I am very, very optimistic. So I'll just go straight Philly, downer fan and say that they're going to lose 2-1 on a really late goal to Minnesota, and Bonji's going to score it because he always does for them right now. And that's my on the volley take. And I'm going to be really happy when the Union somehow win 4-0 now. So I'll throw this over to Eric. Do you have an on the volley take or a score prediction you want to give before we get?
I think we're going to win because I think I'm at least going to miss at least part of the game. So going by last week's result, I think we're going to see a Union win.
All right, I love it. You want to throw a score on it, or you just want to leave it at Union win?
Okay, I'll throw a bonus prediction. Union win with a shutout.
Ooh, I like that. I would really, really like that, especially on an afternoon on a Saturday. That sounds like a great way to spend a Saturday evening is with 3 points and a shutout. Mm-hmm. Jimmy, I'll throw the next one over to you. Do you have an on the volley take or a score prediction you want to give?
I'm gonna say that I think Union are gonna get a 3-1 victory. I'm worried about a clean sheet. I just think Minnesota's kind of has that next man up mentality, and it doesn't. They had a fair few of people missing in the international window as well, if I remember correctly, and they still beat LAFC 2-0. So really solid performance. And I also believe that Emmanuel Reynoso made his first appearance of the season against LAFC. So that's just another. The guy seems to have some sort of controversy every year when he's coming in, but he comes back and he performs right away. He's one of the better midfielders in the league, and Union are definitely going to have to look out for that. I wouldn't be surprised if he's in the starting lineup on Saturday. But I think Union are going to get it done. I think it's going to be a 3-1 victory, and I'm going to say that I guess my on the volley take is going to be that Quadzilla keeps his hops running, and he I don't know if he gets the game winner or what, but I think Quinn Sullivan's gonna be an important piece in this one, and yeah, that's my on the volley take for tonight.
Love it. Last but not least, Paul, do you have an on the volley take you want to share with us?
I'm gonna say the Union are gonna get a 2-1 win. I'm gonna go with Minnesota's goal. I'm gonna go the former Norwich man Timu Pukki. He just puts the ball in the back of the net. And while the Union had an improved defensive performance last week, I feel like Minnesota will find a way to sneak one in. And then with our goals, I'm going to stick with Carranza. He's going to get another one. And then I'm going to agree with Jimmy, and I'm going to think Quinn Sullivan's going to get another one on the night.
All right. I love it. For those watching, I know, Eric, you were just making some faces. Our Union 2 are in a penalty shootout right now, are they not?
They are, and first team center back Macania missed his penalty.
Oh.
So Union and Chicago just scored. So Chicago's up 2-1 in penalties at this point.
Oof. Well, if you're watching this, you can go ahead and go tune into that penalty shootout since we're done here for tonight. If you're listening to this, you can check the score and see what it was from later on. This has been another episode of Doop on the Volley, Philly Sports Network's Union podcast. Follow us on socials wherever you can at Doop Doop on the Volley. I always say by the Volley. That's just not it. But you can find us on Twitter and Instagram. But until next time, guys, I'm Tim. That's Paul. That's Eric and Jimmy. And we'll see you next time. Have a good one. Peace out.
See you guys.